We use for conditional when we are talking about the imaginary result of situation in the past. The past perfect is used in the conditional clause. In other clause, we use would, might, or could with have in the past participle. Past participle.
Siamo arrivati al momento più atteso. Sono emozionata! Non so come Tra poco scopriremo quale delle due coppie si aggiudicherà la sfida e vincerà i premi di cortesia del giorno.
I wouldn't have come if I know that you were ill. I didn't know you were ill, so I came. If Mike hadn't spent so much time playing computer games, he could have passed his exams. He didn't pass exams because he spent so much time playing computer games. Sometimes we use mixed and conditional, which include parts of both conditional, especially second and third forms. The second and third conditional sentences. For example, when we imagine the present result of a situation in the past, we use the past perfect in the conditional clause but complete the sentence with a second conditional form. If Jim hadn't been such a careless driver, he will still be with us today. Jim was a careless driver, and as a result, he isn't with us today. When we are talking about the imaginary result of present or permanent situation, we use the past simple in the conditional clause, but complete the sentence with a third conditional form. He wouldn't have been able to help you if he wasn't a doctor. He was able to help you because he's a doctor. Comparison of adjective and adverbs, superlative forms. We use the suffix her to form the comparative of most one-syllable adjective. They followed common once they knew their children were safe. The weather is ultra in the south of the country. The superlative form of these adjectives ends in est. That's the kindest things they had ever said to me, or that's the kindest thing she is ever said to me. Some short adjectives and adverbs have irregular comparative and superlative forms. Just take a look. Better and best are the comparative and superlative forms of good and well. Worse and worst are the comparative and superlative forms of bad. And badly, further, and furthest are usually comparative and superlative of far. One and two syllable adjectives. I can read. One and two syllable adjectives which end in way have comparative forms ending in er. That's IER in English. That's ear. Sheila looks much prettier now than she has had her hair cut. The superlative forms these adjectives ends in est. Chile tends to the driest month of the year in my country. That's July. Tends to be the driest month of the year in my country. More is normally used for the comparative and adjectives and adverb with two or more syllables. There's nothing more irritating than losing your keys. The superlative of these adjectives and adverbs is formed with most. Of all the presentations we hear today, yours was the most careful prepared. When we want to say the two things are the same, we often use the structure as and as, with either an adjective or an adverb. The new drafting system is just as slow as the old one. The structure not as and not so as can be used with either an adjective or an adverb to compare two things which are not the same. A new novel is not as complicated as the previous one. Less can also be used with the same meaning. A new novel is less complicated than the previous one. The superlative form of less is least. Henry is the least successful of the three brothers. Contrast links, however, nevertheless, and the other hand can be used to express contrast. They often count the beginning of the sentence are usually separated from the rest of the sentence with a comma. The problem is clearly getting worse. However, nobody seems to want to do anything about it. When on the other hand it's used, the first sentence or paragraph often begins with on the one hand. On the one hand, the problem is clearly getting worse. On the other hand, nobody seems to be doing anything about it. In contrast, and by contrast, indicate a contrast between two things. They are usually separated from the rest of the sentence with a comma. Traditional views in our environment in contrast solar power is far less damaging, although and even though also express contrast, but they introduce a clause which contains a subject and a verb. They cannot be followed by a comma, and they can be used when the sentence only has one clause. Some governments are refusing to take action, although the situation is urgent, is okay. While warriors are followed by a subject and verb, it can be used to express a contrast between two things. A letter can take days to arrive, whereas an email can be sent in a few seconds. Despite and spite of have similar meaning to although, but they must be followed by an informal noun phrase. Despite having some advantage, solar power is not widely used in my country. I cannot see. Despite its advantage, solar power is not widely used in my country. If we were the fact that after despite or in spite of we can finish the clause, and the same way with although, recycling to essential, although it takes time. Recycling is essential in spite of the fact that it takes time.